Welcome to the Sales Automation Mania Introduction and Overview Part 2. In this section we're going to talk about the concepts that you need to understand to implement and use SAM campaigns. A campaign consists of stages and transitions. So if you think about it as a flowchart, that's a good way to think about it. A stage is the name for where a prospect is, the state that they're in your overall sales process. So examples are start, done, letter sent, waiting for proposal, call in 2 weeks, those kinds of things. A transition is a rule describing when a prospect moves from one stage to another and what actions are to be performed when that happens. So the transition is a combination of two things. It's when to transition the contact from one stage to another, and it's also tied to what to do as that transition is happening, what actions to perform. So in this diagram below, start is a stage, and it transitions to letter sent, and you can imagine that the action on that transition is sending a letter. And then there's another transition to the done stage. So transitions make decisions and are really where the work of the campaigns happen. So in this example, the transition has really four things. It has a starting stage and an ending stage, where it goes from and to in terms of the state that the contact is in, the stage that they're in. It has a list of preconditions and a list of actions. The preconditions are the things that must be true for the transition to fire, and the actions are the things that happen. So here the preconditions are in red, and it's email address not blank and country not equal United States. So you can imagine a sales force, not unlike ours at Northwoods, that follows up U.S. leads but not European and Asian and Australian leads. So we have a transition like this where if we do have an email address but it's not the U.S., send a letter. And that's how our campaign starts for that kind of a contact. If it's U.S. and there is a phone number, we take a different transition out of the start stage. The definition of the preconditions is that they all have to be true for the transition to fire. So in the case where there's an email address but it's the United States, this particular transition that you see here won't fire because part of it's true but part of it isn't. So that allows you to define some fairly powerful tests for what to do when. SAM can also hold up transitions for things that need to happen from outside, the things that require salesperson or administrator intervention. So calls, meetings, to-dos, those are all things that something needs to be done by the outside world before the transition can really be completed. So if a transition has any of these outside tasks, it waits for those activities to be cleared or completed before fully transitioning into the next stage. So here's an example where a client has been phoned, and we have client misspelled, I just realized as I'm doing this. The client's been phoned, and the procedure is to wait 90 days and then schedule another meeting. So the transition is wait 90 days, or the precondition is wait 90 days, and the actions are send a letter, it's time for our quarterly review, schedule a meeting in 10 days with the title quarterly, and to schedule another thing, a to-do for Betty, the admin, to arrange the meeting, to call the client and really set up the time for the meeting 10 days hence. So quick review, campaigns consist of stages and transitions. Transitions consist of a beginning stage and ending stage. Think of them as an arrow. A list of preconditions, things that have to be true, and a list of actions, things to do as that transition is firing. So now you know most of the concepts already. Now there's just the details. There are some special stage names. The beginning of every campaign is called start. The last stage of a campaign is done. If a prospect or contact transitions into the done stage, then SAM will remove it from that campaign. That's a definition of what it means to move into done. We also have a wildcard stage, which means you can schedule this transition to happen no matter what stage the contact is in. Goldmine has these, and they're called preemptive, which we just learned the other day. We thought we had invented these. Turns out Goldmine also had them. How does SAM keep track of the stage and state of each individual contact within the multiple campaigns that might be running? What it does is it creates, when you load a campaign into an ACT database, part of that process is creating 3 contact fields with the names being prefixed by the name of the campaign. So task completed, stage, and last results. If this was a follow-up campaign and its name was follow-up, you would have 3 new fields called follow-up, task completed, follow-up stage, and follow-up last results. How are these fields used? Task completed is a date field. It's the date that all the tasks were completed for the transition that's just been done by the contact, or it's blank if there's still activities pending. So that date there is in a wait 90 days. It's waiting 90 days from the date in the task completed field. The stage is the current stage of this contact for this contact in this campaign. If it's blank, it means this contact isn't participating in this campaign. So if you had 3 campaigns, you'd have 3 sets of these fields, and any individual contact could be in 0, 1, or multiple campaigns, all in the same database, all running every night. There's one final field, which is the last results field, which is a per campaign last results, meant to be used like the last results field within ACT, but it's meant to hold the status of this contact with respect to this campaign. And it can be used by the salesperson to give hints back to the campaign about how the campaign should execute. So you might use last results to say, after a phone call, for example, to trigger a transition to a high priority lead versus a low priority lead. On the transitions, there's preconditions and actions. The preconditions are fairly simple, and this is all of them, in fact, on this one page. The preconditions are the tests that have to be true before the contact moves into the new stage that those preconditions are part of. They can be wait n days, wait until a date, and you can have it be a specific date or a month date, ignore the year, so you can use it for birthday campaigns. Compare fields, so compare a contact field with a value to trigger different actions. For example, you may have a campaign defined which is doing follow-up letters once a week for 9 weeks. But if the contact buys something and you set ID status to customer when that action happens, you could teach your campaign to, if a ID status changes to customer, then exit this campaign and start a new campaign, for example. So you could do that. You could go to the done stage and just leave this contact out of that campaign if they buy, or you could make other decisions. No touch is test if the customer has not been contacted within a certain number of days. You can do note contains to test if notes history contains a particular value. You can do activity contains, which will test an activity to see if it contains a value, and you can optionally have this set the record manager, because who owns the activity can sometimes determine who's following up on it and that kind of thing, or who owns that contact in your database. That's the end of preconditions. The actions, the things that can happen when those preconditions trigger, are send an email, and that's merge an HTML email message, and this part of SAM is derived from technology that we built for Mail Merge Mania. In fact, it's the same source. We we reuse it. Um, so a tried and true, well understood, well burned in HTML merging package is built into this. Now you can't buy SAM and then not buy Mail Merge Mania and do Mail Merge Mania things. The Mail Merge Mania interface itself isn't exposed in SAM. So if you want to send a monthly newsletter, and that's not a campaign kind of an activity, you'd still need Mail Merge Mania to do that. You can send a letter, this is a to be printed letter, and mailed via standard mail or FedEx, whatever. You can have it send a fax, and we've integrated with WinFax Pro. A generic letter doesn't refer to a letter with generic message. It's a letter that's sent by whatever the best means for that contact. And you set the priority. So if your priority is send an email, send a fax, send a letter, if you set it up to send a generic letter, it will email if there's an email address. Failing that, it will fax if there's a fax number, and failing that, it will print off the mail, the merged message, to your printer so that you can mail it. Integration with the activities that are in ACT. You can schedule meetings, calls, and to-dos. You can add notes to the contact. Second page of actions, you can set a field, so you can set a contact field to a specific value. You can copy a field, so you can copy field A to field B. You can add to a field. You can add a contact to a specific group. You can send an alert, so you can record printed warnings that come up in the reports that you run from SAM, such as, hey, this customer's not being contacted enough. You can set a campaign, so a campaign can insert contacts into other campaigns. And you might have a campaign which only purpose is to, oh, here's a new contact, figure out what kind of campaign to run for it, and then parcel it off into other campaigns. Or you can have an action where this contact is no longer needs to be in this campaign and have him remove it. And that's sort of like moving them in. That is exactly like moving them into the done stage. But it's a different way to do that. So that's the end of the concepts. We'll get into really seeing SAM here in the next videos. But once again, I'm going to not push Windows Media, and we're going to pause here at the end of this slide. Thank you very much.